of the world. Her Spirit is moving all over the world, as the prophet said would be. All over the world, there's a mighty revelation of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. All over His church, God's Spirit is moving. All over His church, as the prophet said it would be. All over His church, there's a mighty revelation of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Right here in this place, the Spirit is moving. Right here in this place, as the prophet said it would be. Right here in this place, there's a mighty revelation of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Deep down in my heart, God's Spirit is moving down. Deep down in my heart, as the prophet said it will be. Deep down in my heart, there's a mighty revelation of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea.
You know, I was just thinking, you know, that it's coming up to another anniversary. It's the anniversary of the first moon landing. Did you know that? I think it's next month. First moon landing. And do you know what the first meal on the moon was? Scouse. Hey, do you know, it could well be. But no, the first meal wasn't scouse, because I can tell you what the first meal was. It was the Lord's Supper.
It was a witch.
It was the Lord's Supper.
Wow.
Buzz Aldrin was given before he left to go up into space by his Presbyterian pastor. He gave him a little cup with wine in and a little piece of bread.
Jesus.
To take with him. And the first thing when he landed on the moon he did, he broke bread. And he remembered.
Jesus.
He remembered what Jesus had did for him. Even on the moon, he could remember what Jesus did for him. And when we take communion, that's what we do. We remember what Jesus has done for us. He was the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He was the God who flung stars into space. He was a God who created all this universe, made everything. And the word He spoke it, and everything fell into place. And yet He gave up all that throne room of heaven. And He humbled Himself and became as a little child. A child that was born to die. Not just to die, but to die one of the most horrible and cruelest deaths that's ever been invented by men. They whipped Him mercilessly. So that when they pulled the whip off His back, they tied a little piece of bone, a little piece of lead. So when it tore His back, it literally ripped His flesh. Have you ever had one? Do you ever get one of those little paper cups? You know, where you cut yourself and they're very, very thin. They're really sore, aren't they? Well, could you imagine what it's like a razor going through your body? That's what it would be like for Him. They were crowns of thorns, not like our little rose bush thorns. Have you ever pictured yourself with a rose? How painful that is. Could you imagine what it's like? Spikes, an inch and a half long. Briars. They had to go and get gloves to put these things together. And then what they did, they put it on his head, they beat it into his head. In fact, the Bible tells us his face was marred beyond all recognition. It was like he'd been hit by a bus, people punching him, hitting him. If that wasn't enough, they put nails through his hands and his feet. Not our little 6-inch nails. I'm talking nails that thick with a point that would have went straight through his hands, straight through his legs. And then they lifted up the cross in which and they dropped it into a hole in the ground to the very bones of his body were jarred. Have you ever had a dislocated shoulder? Have you ever pulled it out of place? Can you imagine what it's like? His body was dislocated. It had been ripped to pieces. All of that he's gone through. And even when he was hanging there, he was thinking of other people. He wasn't thinking of himself. He's in agony. And he said, Mother, here is your son, John, here is your mother. He gave them to the people that were nearest to him. He said, comfort one another. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The Bible tells us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He wasn't hanging there for nothing. He was hanging there for a purpose. And that was to pay the price of our sin. We're the guilty ones. We've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But Jesus paid that price on the cross. Because when God the Father looked at God the Son, he turned his back on him. And he allowed him to become sin for us. Every sin that you or I have ever committed was placed on his shoulders, and he paid the penalty for it. And he said, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? God the Father. He'd never been separated. He never did anything without the Father's permission. Nothing. He was always close to the Father. But the Father turned his back on him in order to pay our price. And the last thing he said on the cross was, Telestai. It is finished. He paid the price. It's done. There's nothing we can do to earn salvation. We can only accept what Jesus has done for us. It's not about us. It's all about him and his love for us. You see, it wasn't the nails that held Jesus to the cross. It was his love for you and me. So when we take the bread and we drink the wine, we remember what Jesus has done for us. For the Lord Jesus, on the night in which he was betrayed, as was his custom, he took the bread and he broke it. And he said, this is my body, which is broken for you. He said, eat this in remembrance of me. And in like manner he took the cup and said, this is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you for the remission of sins. Drink this in memory of me. So let's eat and drink the blood of Christ, remembering all that Jesus has done for us.